this is Potluck Parodies with our second video about the CaseMD products that we recently purchased. So let me start off by saying first that we are not affiliated with the company in any way. We bought it just like a regular consumer would, paid regular full price for it. But I wanted to give you a bit more information because there's not a lot online about this product and why you need it from anyone else other than the manufacturer. And I know a lot of times you want to hear from somebody else with an unbiased opinion. So the first thing I want to talk about is we are only using this product for epinephrine and asthma inhaler storage. So that's all I can really speak to. We are not diabetic. I can't talk about insulin or anything like that. So our conversation, even though pieces of it will be helpful to you if you're using insulin, will only reference epinephrine and those injectors. So I'm going to set that aside for a minute and first talk about why you would need a product like this. So epinephrine is supposed to be kept between 68 and 77 degrees. Now, the manufacturer does say that excursions are permitted, but the question is, what are excursions? Nobody knows. The manufacturer doesn't say. Is it 30 minutes? Is it 4 hours? Is it 24 hours? Nobody really knows. And if you talk to 10 allergists, they'll give you 10 different opinions about what an excursion is. So in our family, because we've used epinephrine on several occasions, and it's really important that we keep it at the correct temperature, we take an ultra-safe approach. A lot of people aren't so concerned about it, but we go more on the safe side because we know that we need that medication to be working when we actually need it. So, how are you going to keep your epinephrine at the right temperature? There's some products available now that might be useful to you. A couple years ago, my son, who was around 10 years old at the time, did a science experiment because we were wondering what is the best way to store epinephrine in hot temperatures. And we did a few different comparisons, but we compared an insulated pouch to a Frio, which is a pretty popular storage device for strong temperatures, and a thermos, which I'll talk about in a minute. Now, I hear a lot of people online saying, well, we throw our Epipens in an insulated container and it goes in my purse. Well, one of the things we learned in our scientific experiment, which of course is not peer-reviewed research, but still may be helpful to you, is that anything in an insulated pouch without any cooling device with it, such as an ice block, will reach the outside temperature in less than 30 minutes. So this is a rather inexpensive, cheap insulated container, but there are others, and this is not the one we tested with. But you should pretty much expect that the temperature inside that insulated pouch is going to match the outside temperature in somewhere between 15 and 45 minutes. So if you're just putting it in there and putting it in your purse and thinking that that's okay, it might be okay if it's not a hot day, but if it's 95 degrees out there, it's going to be 90 degrees in the shade, which means your purse in the insulated pouch is going to be 90 degrees within probably 15 to 45 minutes. So for us, this is insufficient as far as storage, unless there's some type of device to help with cooling inside. Now the Frio is another popular thing that's used. You soak this in water, and through the evaporative cooling process, it claims to keep your temperature of your devices around room temperature. We're not trying to keep it cold, we're just trying to keep it room temperature. But for us, when we did our testing, we just couldn't get everything to fit properly. So at the time we had Epipens, not AviQs, and we had 2 Epipens plus an asthma inhaler. And when you put water in this, it really expands and it just felt too stuffed. And our temperature, the way we measured temperature it was not cooling to the proper temperature. It was more like in the 80 to 85 degree range on a 95 to 100 degree day, and this was in the shade. So I'm not saying that the product doesn't work, I'm just saying for our needs, we couldn't fit everything into one, and it was a little bit too bulky and too much work to try and use 2 different Frio devices. So we went on to a third option, which is something we created on our own, which is a king-size thermos. Now, we use these all the time for food. If you have food allergies, you probably are well acquainted with your food thermoses because you got to take food with you often where you go places. and I know that they can maintain temperature really, really well. So what we did is we found these tiny little ice cubes, and we would take 1 or 2, depending on how long we were going to be in the sun, put it in the thermos, stuff some paper towel in there, and by now we're on AviQs, and we would take our AviQs and put them in there, and then we put our asthma inhaler in as well, and it fit just perfectly. And we found this was really the best way to keep our devices at a good temperature for somewhere in the 5 to 10 hour range, depending on the outdoor temperature. Always in the shade, never in the sun. So that's always worked well. A lot of people really freak out when they hear ice cubes or ice packs along with epinephrine. You're not supposed to do that, you're not supposed to do that. And that's true, they really shouldn't be touching, and you shouldn't be trying to keep it at a refrigerator temperature. But this really wasn't that cold. It was just cold enough to keep it at room temperature for an extended period of time. And we've also in the past used these insulated containers. We would generally wrap the Epipens with a washcloth or a towel so that the ice wouldn't touch it directly, but it could keep it at that room temperature that we were aiming for. So that has worked for us for probably the past couple years. And when I saw this product come out, I thought, well, that's kind of cool, because that would eliminate our trying to manage the ice. The ice works fine when we're at home, but when my son goes to scout camp and is away for several days, or we're out for a 12 to 15 hour period, we're a little concerned about keeping those frozens when he doesn't have access to a freezer, and the ice just complicates it. So I thought, well, this is pretty cool to have a product where we wouldn't have to worry about ice, because they do claim to maintain room temperature for 10 hours at 0 and 100 degrees. So we thought, if that's true and if it works for our purposes, it will eliminate a step for us, which is having to worry about the ice. So that was one thing that drew me to the product. In fact, I was so interested in it, we actually traded in our AviQs and got an EpiPen prescription instead. Now we still have the AviQs, we still may use those during the non-summer months, but where we live, we can get between 95 and 100 degree days regularly. So, this temperature thing is really a concern for us, and this will save us a lot of hassle in dealing with the ice. So, what I decided, we ended up with 2. You do have to buy 2. Each one will only fit 1 EpiPen. And I'm going to give you some examples. This is the generic myelin pen. As I showed you in my unboxing video, it has a removable medication device. If you want to use that, you can. It is rather small though. So thinking about the palm of my hand, it's only slightly bigger than the palm of my hand. If you need to carry Benadryl with you, there are a couple options to do that. These are the chewables. We're about to outgrow these. Well, we have outgrown these, and we can swallow pills now. But if you're curious, this is the chewable from Walgreens, the generic brand. It will not fit. Now you could trim this part around here and get it to fit, and then it would work fine. And same deal with this. This is a liquid cap Benadryl, Walgreens brand again, and this one actually will fit. But there are some times you have to take 2 pills, and you may have to trim the outer edge of these blister packs to make it work. So you can put that in and screw it in. Inside is a removable liner. For our purposes today, we're going to leave that in, but you could remove it if you had to. But I want to show you how things fit in here. So here is a generic EpiPen. If you put it in, you can see there's just enough room in there to actually screw it in with the medication, and you should be good to go for about 10 hours. Now, I also have one of the generic EpiPens. This is a different brand. I believe this is the CVS brand, and it's important to note this one will fit in there with or without the inner sleeve, but you cannot close it if you have the medication in there. So to use it, you would have to not store medication in there. So it just depends on what brand you have, but either will work, but only the EpiPen will fit with the medication. So those are the 2 brands we have. I also wanted to mention this small one. Now for us, we carry 2 Epipens and an asthma inhaler. And all of them have to be kept at the certain temperature, the same temperature. So for us, if we can only use this for Epipens, but we don't have anything to store the inhaler, we haven't really made any progress because we still got to store the inhaler, so we need something for that. So what held me up from purchasing this actually initially was trying to figure out how to manage the asthma inhaler. And thankfully, I knew it wasn't going to fit based on the diagram and the measurements based on the website. But when I wrote customer service and asked them a question, they gave me the idea that some inhalers you can actually remove medication. So my plan to carry our asthma inhaler is to pop it in here, just like this. Now, if you notice, there's a bunch of room there. So what else could I put in there? We could put Benadryl in there, or we could put, I might even stuff a little paper towel in there, because all these types of containers will hold temperature better if they're full rather than having empty space. So that seemed like a pretty reasonable solution to me, to be able to take all 3 devices with us, store them all at the proper temperature, have room for all of our medications, and not have to worry about the temperature. So then the question comes, well, gosh, this is a lot to carry. And a lot of people, if you look at the Facebook post where this is advertised, that is one of the complaints. Well, I don't want to have to buy more than one because you have to carry 2 Epipens, or it's heavy and I don't want to have to carry it, or lots of objections that way. So for us, we have a pouch. This is actually what we used to use for our thermos. It fit in there perfectly. And it just happens to fit these perfectly as well. So we can fit all 3 in here. And we even actually have a little bit of extra space in there to throw the actual inhaler plastic part in. That doesn't have to be kept refrigerated. That's just the delivery system, just like that. And now we have everything we need in just one simple pouch. So that's an option. I purchased this on Amazon several years ago. It came attached with this piece, which I thought would be great for snacks. Once we initially moved from EpiPen to AviQ, we found that our AviQs just fit in here. So this is what we've been carrying for several months while it's not hot. Now these are this is the tactical gear, and I don't know how to say it, but it's spelled M-O-L-L-E. And the great thing about this is that there's so many different ways to attach it, and there's so many different sizes of pouches you can buy and different types of attachments. You can buy medical bags, you can buy camo, you can buy black and khaki and green, whatever you want. And this would actually attach to the side pouches if we needed to carry that, but we don't. So we'll just be planning on taking our 3 devices and putting it in here. So as I said in Facebook, that seemed to be a lot of the major concern about it is I don't want to carry so many devices. But if you do this, you're not carrying 3 things, you're just carrying 1 thing. Voila, super easy. Everything's in one place. It's easily recognizable, easily pulled out of a backpack or any other type of bag you have, and no worries about the temperature. Now, one other idea I had, because you do have to, according to the manufacturer, after you hit about 10 hours, you need to take these and get them back to room temperature. So let's say you've been out in the heat all day. Or my son's, for example, is at scout camp. He's been out in the heat all day. How in the world is he going to get this back to room temperature when he doesn't have any rooms because he's in a tent? So one idea I had would be to remove this inner liner, just fill it with cold water for a little bit. You know, maybe 30 minutes or so, throw an ice cube in there, and you'll suddenly have it back to room temperature. So even if you're not in a situation where you have access to room temperature or refrigerator or some way to cool it or get it back down to normal temperature, that's an easy option and an easy solution for you. Now I did want to mention a couple of the, I guess, complaints or concerns that people had online. If you've read through the Facebook post, CaseMD has been pretty patient with people posting the same complaint over and over and over and over and over again, even sometimes in the same thread. And they've been very gracious about explaining why they can't do an AviQ, case right now, just because their technology right now, it needs to be in this shape to make it work and make it last, and they're not going to give us a product that isn't ready to work the way it's designed to work. So no, it doesn't work for the AviQ right now, and as I said, we actually went out and exchanged for the generic Epipen just to make it work for our family so that we could use it. A lot of people complain that they have to buy more than one because obviously you have to carry 2 Epipens. Again, if you buy 2 and put them in a pouch, suddenly you're only carrying one thing. So we don't really, I don't really see that as a concern to have to put these together inside one pouch. They are large, that is a fact of life, but you know, you need your medication, there's no way around that, and you need to keep it safe. So not really a major concern for us. We're used to carrying a pouch like this. We've been doing it for years, and so it doesn't really change our lifestyle at all. People also complain about the expense, $40 for the big one, $33 for the little one. I mentioned this in my other video. If you're going to go buy a Yeti or a nice high quality double-walled thermos, you're going to pay between $30 and $40 for that, and the only purpose of that is to keep your water or drinks cold. So I think when you're dealing with medication, I'm willing to invest the $30 to $40 that it costs to keep it at the right temperature. I really don't think it's unreasonable, especially for a small business and a startup business, to be paying that for these particular devices. Now, it is my only hesitation in it is that you know, as I've mentioned, our family is always super careful with medication, and we have to just kind of take the company's word for it that it's going to last for 10 hours at 0 or 100 degrees. And that's a little hard for me. As I mentioned, my son's science experiment before, a couple years ago, kind of helped us know where our temperature was and how we needed to pay attention to the outside weather. For example, we learned that the temperature on our weather app is really about the temperature in the shade. So if your weather app says it's 95 out, that's really a shade temperature. So you need to add 8 to 10 degrees for that if you're going to be out in the sun. So we learned that. You know, we learned about the insulated pouches really not doing much of anything. And we learned that, you know, our thermos situation was really the best for our family. But I can't really test this. So I am taking their word for it, so it makes me slightly nervous. But, you know, looking at the product, it does look like it's very well made. It's heavy duty, and at this point, we kind of just have to take their word for it. There is, I'm sure, a study that goes along with the product that they would provide for you if you're interested. Haven't asked, that's just my guess. Now, I have a little bit of advice for the CaseMD people. Based on, you know, it took me about a month to decide whether or not I was going to purchase this. And the first is that you have a little bit more of an online presence. There was nothing other than what was on the website looking at this product. So it would be helpful, I think, for you to have a few YouTube videos that explain a little bit more to customers the science behind it. It would just lend a little bit more credibility to what you're selling and help us trust you more, because when we're giving our money to you, we don't really know if you're a real company. We don't know if you're going to take our money and send us a bad product. So more of an online presence just lends more credibility to what the product that you're selling. As you are well aware, the CaseMD folks, that people have a lot of concern about having to carry 2 separate devices. And why can't you just have one device that will carry, or one case that will carry 2 devices? And you've explained that over and over and over again in your Facebook post, but perhaps there's a way you can make people feel like it's one device. Everyone seems to think that this is one device when it's actually 2. And the difference is probably a 25-cent piece of plastic that makes people feel like it's one device. People say, well, why can't you make it to fit 2? I have to have 2 to be able to carry it. Well, they're already carrying 2 devices. They just don't realize it because they're attached. Or they realize it and maybe just are not making the connection. So a simple plastic piece that could kind of bind these together would help. The other advice I have would be to find pouches, variety, to fit 2 cases or 3 cases that you could sell along with your products, as well as selling them in 2 or 3 packs. There's a lot of people who say, CaseMD, what's going on with you? You know we have to carry 2 Epipens. Why would you sell something that just carries 1? Well, if you bundle them together as 2 or you bundle them together with 3, it just makes people realize that you are well aware, as I know you are, that we must carry 2 doses of epinephrine at all times. So it's really just, it's a presentation issue more than anything. The product is fine, but people may need to see it differently in order to understand its purpose. All right. That is pretty much my review of the product. I will post maybe in a few months after we've had a chance to use it and give you some more feedback and some more opinions about it. But if you have questions, I don't know if I can answer them or not, you feel free to post them, but I would encourage you to just contact them directly. And I remind you, I'm not affiliated with them. I'm just a mom who needed a way to carry this in the miserable 95 to 105 degree temperature we experience on a regular basis where we live. So thank you for your time. I hope it was helpful to you, and good luck to you.